let's look at the upside down Aśvattha tree and what to do with it, what Bhagwan is advising Arjun to do, and also us, of course, as to what to do with this upside down tree. So the Blessed Lord said, they, the wise speak of the indestructible Aśvattha tree. Remember, it is indestructible. In a sense, it is indestructible because its source is indestructible, as having the roots above and the branches below, and whose leaves are the Vedas. He who knows this tree in its entirety is also known as the knower of the Veda. He who knows it alone is the Veda knower. Now, what does it mean? Does it mean that if I, read about this tree and this very funny tree, upside down tree, and look at the, what the branches are and the leaves are and the buds, etc., then I become a Veda knower? In fact, we have to kind of go into the philosophical roots of this upside down tree and to understand what is the relationship between the various components of this tree and how it represents, in a sense, you and me as well. And if we understand our true nature as the supreme self through the Vedic knowledge, through the Vedantic knowledge, then we become the knower of Veda. So we'll go into more detail in that. Below and above are spread its branches, nourished by the gunas. Remember now the gunas we've been talking about in the last chapter, again mentioned here. And nourished by the gunas means what? It means that this continuation of this tree is only because it is being nourished by something. It is being nourished by these three gunas. And we will translate this in terms of our individual self, because if we say it is nourished by the gunas, on the one hand, the totality of creation is based upon the attributes of the gunas, and it is the attributes of gunas which continues this manifestation. But on the other hand, you and me in this totality of creation are also nourished by the gunas, and we also continue, but we continue in a different manner. We continue in the cycle of birth and death. And what it says is the sense objects are its buds. So Bhagavan is taking elements of the tree and telling us that when you look at the buds, which are just about to flower, then these are the sense objects. Now, see the relationship between the tree, and now we are looking at the sense objects. Where do the sense objects come in? Simply because Bhagavan is talking about the tree, creation, but at the same time, he's talking about the Jiva. And below in the world of men, stretch forth the roots originating in action. See, another funny thing is that there are roots which are coming down and originating in action. And these roots are kind of fixing themselves into the ground in such a way that they bind through action. Sense objects, action. What is the relationship between all these things? Let's see further on. So then Bhagavan says, it is a form not perceived here as such. Neither its end, nor its origin, nor its foundation, nor its resting place. In other words, this tree, we are not going to look outside the window and see a tree hanging upside down. In other words, it's not perceived by us as such. So there are two ways of understanding. Is that one, it is described in the text as such. So it's not perceived as described in the text, but also in a sense that unless we look beyond the creation, we are not going to perceive the way in which we are supposed to perceive this totality of creation. So neither its end, we can't see the end of it, nor can we see the origin, nor its foundation, nor its resting place. And then Bhagwan makes a direct statement as to what to do with this tree. He says, having cut asunder this firm-rooted Aśvattha tree with the strong axe of non-attachment. Okay, so what do we have to do? We have to cut the tree. And remember, it is a firm-rooted Aśvattha tree. And because it is such a strong tree, it is a very kind of strong tree in the sense that it can't be cut easily. And we know that, and just take an example. If we are talking about our attachment to various different things in the world around us, and I'm attached to this special masala tea which I make in the morning, so attached to it that if I don't get it, then I feel as if I missed something today, and my whole day kind of is up and down. That attachment leads me to action. And the object of my desire, which is the sense objects described here as the buds, it is so difficult to even get rid of this single attachment to the cup of coffee or cup of tea. But here we are talking about a huge tree, full of attachments, full of branches, full of things. And therefore, it requires a very strong axe of non-attachment. What is the relationship between non-attachment and the destruction or cutting of the tree? We will also find out. So this upside down tree, let's start looking at it. Having cut asunder this firm-rooted Aśvattha tree with a strong axe of non-attachment. So let's think a bit more about that. Here, we have got a strong axe of non-attachment because the tree itself is very strong and very big. Now, what is this tree? And if we look at ourselves as, maybe we can think about ourselves as this upside down tree as well. Is that the root is here somewhere, which is the higher consciousness. And what is down here is the prakrti, which is the gross body. So we can think of this as ourselves as well. So this strong and big tree is really nothing but a representation of our attachments. We have got very strong attachments to everything. And therefore this tree for us is a very strong and big tree. Lots of attachments, lots of intense attachments. And therefore we require a strong axe of non-attachment to cut it down. So referring back to chapter number 6, when a man is not attached to sense objects or to actions, having renounced all thoughts, then he is said to have attained yoga. This is now called Yoga Rudha. Somebody who has attained perfection. By doing what? By non-attachment to sense objects or to actions, and even renouncing all the thoughts. And here renunciation means what? Disidentification and detachment from the sense objects. So again, you will see Bhagavad Gita is very consistent in terms of what he's talking about, and references are always found throughout the Bhagavad Gita. It is like a wonderful link of all the verses which bring this philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, and it's practiced in such a coherent manner that it's the most wonderful text for me, at least. Is an absolutely wonder as how this Bhagwan has talked about all this very metaphysical, philosophical principles, but has brought us right down to the ground to understand really what is it that is required. So sense object, as we have seen, objects of desire and attachment to them. Just as I was explaining it, that the desire kind of reaches out to the object of desire, becomes attached to it. And this attachment to the object of desire really is where we get bound. And this bondage really is that I'm attached to things of this world, the material things. I can be attached to, the chair I'm sitting on. I can be attached to people around me. I can be attached to various different situations as well. And desires are expressed as choices and actions, which are then again arising from the vasanas. And this creates a sense of enjoyership of the sense objects and doership of the actions. So, how are we going to cut this tree? By non attachment. And where is this non attachment going to come from? It is going to come from discrimination, viveka. And we have talked about viveka as well. Viveka is this discernment between what is the truth and what is the falsehood, what is Atma and what is Anatma. Atma, Anatma are also represented in the Aśvattha tree, because we are talking about Atma as the ultimate reality and Anatma as this material creation, including ourselves, having this material body, mind, intellect. So this discernment, if we then do it according to the knowledge which we derive from the scriptures, will lead us towards non-attachment. But it requires a very strong non-attachment, which in turn requires us to have a very strong sense of discernment, and which in turn requires us to have a solid foundation of the knowledge itself. Praman is required, and Shabda Praman is really the foundation of our Viveka, and that's why Bhagavan says that the leaves are what? The leaves are the verses of the Vedas. And if you think about that, that is what is required. That is what is going to nourish us as well. And through that, we are going to have very strong acts of non-attachment through Viveka, developing in, first of all, into a sattvic, purified mind, which becomes ready for preparation, which becomes prepared for meditation, and then takes us into the supreme reality, the supreme being. So again, the logic is quite clear as to how this is going to be done. What is it which we talk about when we talk about the acts of non-attachment, and what we are talking about when we are talking about the sense objects, desires, etc., and how that is going to lead us to the ultimate destination, which is the Uttam Purusha, Puruṣottama.